Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. This is Amirash and I teach you science and social science on this amazing platform of the world. And today I bring to you the third lesson of the chapter, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe, in which we will be discussing the age of revolutions that was from 1830 to 1848 in Europe. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, first of all, in the previous session, I talked about the conservatives and the revolutionaries, their different ideologies, their different plannings, thinkings, and motives. So, who were the conservatives? Let me know in the chat box. Okay, the conservatives were the people who were against any change. If a change would take place, then they would think, no, we won't let you change at all. We want to conserve our past. Past is the best. Our past institutions, our past culture, tradition, reforms, all of them are very important. We wouldn't let you change anything. And revolutionaries, they were the opposite of that. Revolutionaries said, no, we want a nation state, we want a country to be unified, we want people to be free. Monarchical rule should finish. Okay, now as I talked about the conservative regime's growth, they started growing in Europe. With that, liberalism that I talked in the previous session, if you are unaware, go and check out. And nationalism, they started increasing. People started believing in liberalism and nationalism. They wanted nation state, they wanted liberty. And who led these revolutions? Definitely the liberal nationalists, right, who wanted both of these things to happen. And they were the educated middle class elite. So they were educated, they had a good mind, and they wanted success in their mission. Now, like what type of people have been talked here? See, as you're able to see, professors, school teachers, clerks, members of the commercial middle class. These all people were a member. These all people were the members of liberal nationalist group. Right, everyone? Now, moving on to the emergence of the new middle class, second half of the 18th century. So, in the second half of the 18th century, a new middle class emerged. Okay, and with that, we also read about the July Revolution, Revolution of Brazil, and the Greek War of Independence. These three important things we are going to read. And the new middle class people were revolutionaries, right? Now, the July Revolution. First of all, we have to remember the place. Now, the place was in France. How can you remember? You know that in July, France got, you can say, France became a republic on 14th July 1798, if I'm not wrong, 1789. Right. Okay, so at that time, France became, you can say, it got freed. So that's why we can say July Revolution was in France. And year was July 1830, right, everyone? Wait a second. Okay. 1830 is important. Now, what was the outcome? The Bourbon kings, who had been restored by the conservatives, were overthrown by liberal revolutionaries who installed a constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe as its head. Now, Bourbon dynasty, if you could recall, Louis XVI was the king during that time. This was a monarchical form of government, right? So this was overthrown by the liberal revolutionaries, by these. Like for example, one liberal revolutionary was Giuseppe Mazzini of Italy that we talked about. Okay, so they were overthrown, they were stressed the power of Bourbon kings by the liberal revolutionaries, and they installed a constitutional monarchy. Okay, and who was their head? Louis Philippe was their head. This was the July Revolution. Understood, everyone? Now, Duke Metternich, who was a conservative who also hosted the Treaty of Vienna, said something. What were his dialogues? When France sneezes, the rest of the Europe catches cold. Now, most of the time, this is a question. This statement will be given to you: when France sneezes, the rest of the Europe catches cold. Why? Why do you think? Now, since this will be an objective paper, this chapter will be included in the term 1. Probably this question wouldn't be asked. But what if it is asked? What will you write? Let me explain you. Now, basically, it says that France was the root of revolution. Just a second, huh? Or you can say all the revolutions, most of the revolutions began from France. Okay, but the impact of the revolutions of France was there on the entire Europe. So you can say the entire Europe suffered because of France revolution. It had a great impact. That's why when France sneezes, the entire Europe, or even the rest of the Europe catches cold. So Duke Metternich said this. This is an important MCQ. Who said this? So Duke Metternich said this, and he was a conservative. Right, everyone? Just a second. Okay. Now we move to the Revolution of Belgium. What happened in the Revolution of Belgium? The July Revolution sparked an uprising in Brazil, which led to Belgium breaking away from United Kingdom of Netherlands. So Belgium broke away with the United Kingdom of Netherlands. Okay, because of the July Revolution, which sparked an uprising. So Brazil also thought, now we will also break away from this. Okay. Now, Greek War of Independence is very, very important. So please mark it. 4 points I've listed below. You can take a screenshot. So the first point says Greece had been part of the Ottoman Empire since the 15th century. So since the 15th century, you can say from 1400 to the dash, right? So since that time, Greece had been the part of Ottoman Empire, which is a Muslim empire. Always remember. Second point says revolutionary nationalism sparked off a struggle for independence in Greece in 1821. So in 1821, some thoughts came to the mind of Greece, in the minds of Greeks, and that's why they thought to do a revolution. Okay. Then nationalists in Greece got support entire Europe who had sympathies for ancient Greek culture. Because they had sympathies for ancient Greek cultures, they got support by them, by the nationalists. Support entire Europe okay, fine. The English poet Lord Byron organized funds and fought for Greece. Now this name is important, which is Lord Byron. Please mark it. This will be important for your examination. And he also died of fever. Okay, finally the Treaty of Constantinople. Please underline this in your textbook. Constantinople of 1832 recognized Greece as an independent nation, a treaty between Ottoman Empire and Greece. So because of this treaty, Greece became an independent nation state. Right, everyone? So now 5-mark question cannot be asked. So just remember these points. From here, you should know Ottoman Empire, who used to rule. Okay, the national got support entire Europe. Okay, so they got support from the entire Europe. These points are very, very crucial. Now, moving on to the romantic imagination and the national feeling. We will talk about romanticism now. Now, just tell me, are the weapons and wars, revolutions, can they only bring nationalist feelings in the mindset of people? Do you think culture is also important? Okay, because the development of nationalism did not come about only through wars and territorial expansion. Just because of winning wars and gaining the territories, it cannot develop the nation. Nationalism cannot just come into the mind just by these two things. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Culture, which brings the people together, which unites the people, is also equally important. Okay, now through art, poetry, stories, and music. So art, poetry, stories, music. What they helped express and shape nationalist feelings. To express your feelings, you need this kind of a medium. Okay, so this was a good idea, I would say. Okay, everyone. Now, moving on to romanticism. Is my screen clearly visible? Okay, fine. Now, what was romanticism? It was a cultural movement in the 18th and 19th century Europe that spread the feeling of nationalism by using art, poetry, music, and stories. People who contribute to it are known as romantic artists. So what was romanticism? Actually, it was a cultural movement, right? In 18th and 19th century Europe spread. What it did, it spread the nationalism feeling in the entire Europe. And what things were used over here? As you can see, by using art, poetry, music, stories, the feeling of nationalism was spread. Now, people who contributed to it, like the people who were engaged in such practice, they are termed as the romantic artists. Okay, everyone? Now, romantic artists and poets criticized the glorification of reason and science. They did not believe in what we call as logic, prudence, reasons, science, and the different theories. What they believed in was emotions, intuitions, and mystical feeling. So these were the things in which you can say the romantic artists believed in. The emotions, the mystical feelings, the internal feelings. Okay, their effort was to create a sense of a shared collective heritage, a common cultural past as the basis of nation. So a nation should be based on the shared collective heritage, the heritage, the different institutions, forts, monuments of any region. A common cultural past, like in the past what happened, that is also common for the people. So this should be the basis of the nation. Now, what are the examples of romanticism? Two examples. One we got to know through the culture, one we got to know through the language. Culture and language play a very important role to unite the people. Even in India, you can see that there are around so many dialects and 22 languages scheduled by our constitution. So the people who speak a language, let's say if two people are speaking, let's say Gujarati or Bengali, then these two people who are speaking Gujarati and these two people who are speaking Bengali would feel closer, right? Gujarati people together, Bengali people together, because their language is the same. Now, through culture, we have an example of German artist Gottfried, and through language, the nationalism feeling was generated by the Polish resistance and Karol Kurpinski. Okay. Now, first we have Johann Gottfried Herder. So, who was he? He was a German artist. He was a painter. Okay, and his nationality was German. But he gave very important concepts to the whole Europe. What were his two concepts? Das Folk and Folkgeist. So these were the two concepts given by Herder. What is Das Folk? Das Folk means the true German, a true German citizen to be discovered among the common people. Okay? Folkgeist means it was through folk songs, folk poetry, and folk dances that the true spirit of nation was popularized. So Folkgeist is the true spirit of a nation, which is popularized by the folk songs, by the folk poetries, by the different folk dances. I hope Das Folk and Folkgeist is clear. Okay, Das Folk is the true German. Now, the emphasis on vernacular, or you can say local language, and the collection of local folklore was used to see. Vernacular is you can say the local language. Like if I talk about Rajasthan, there are a lot of vernacular languages. Like Marwadi is there, and some other. Like Marwadi keeps on changing. If you go to Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, you will find Bhojpuri, Maithili, Avdi. So these all are the local languages. Okay, and the collection of local folklore, folk dances, folk songs, folk poetry. What was the reason? What was the need? Recover an ancient national spirit. A national spirit was found, and to carry the modern nationalist message to large audiences who were mostly illiterate. This was especially so in the case of Poland. So in the case of Poland, what we are able to understand that most of the people were illiterate. Clear? And through this picture, I want to tell you that Poland was in control of Russia, Austria, Prussia. So you can learn it by rap. Okay, right? So this was the thing about it. Even though Poland no longer existed as an independent territory, nationalist feelings were kept alive through music and language. So through music and language, the nationalist feelings of Poland were kept alive, right? Even though it was not a nation state. Now, Karol Krupinski, this name is important, for example, celebrated the nationalist struggle through his operas and music and folk dances such as Polonaise and Mazurka into nationalist symbols. So this person, this nationalist whose name was Karol Krupinski, what he did was through operas and music and folk dances, and the names are important, Polonaise and Mazurka. He converted them into nationalist symbols and celebrated the nationalist struggle. Okay. Now, language too played an important role in developing nationalist sentiment. Language also played a very crucial role. Now, Polish language was forced out of schools due to Russian domination, but Poland began to use language as a weapon of national resistance. So, wait a second, where is my pen? Yeah. See, as Russia was dominating over Poland, Poland language began. See, it was forced out of schools, so Russia removed Polish language from the schools, but still Poland began to use as a weapon of national resistance. Right? Polish was used for church gatherings and all religious instructions. Only this language was used because this developed nationalist sentiments, the feelings in the minds of the citizens. As a result, a large number of priests and bishops were put in jail or sent to Siberia by the Russian authorities as a punishment for their refusal to preach in Russian. So Russia wanted that they should preach in Russian language. But they wouldn't do that because they wanted Polish only. They loved their language. Okay? And that's why the use of Polish came to be seen as a symbol of struggle against the Russian dominance. Okay, now moving on to the hunger, hardship, and popular revolt. Now, the days of 1830 were the years of great economic hardship in Europe. Why there was a great economic hardship? First thing, because of enormous increase in population. The population got increased and there were more seekers of job than employment. तो employment यूरोप में कम थी, but जो employment चाहते थे, जो unemployed people थे, वो ज़्यादा थे. So this was the case in Europe. करेक्ट. तो अब अगर एम्प्लॉयमेंट कम है एंड जो जॉब्स ढूंढना चाहते हैं वो ज़्यादा है, तो क्या होगा? टेल मी. There will be unemployment, there will be migration, people will migrate from rural areas to cities to live in overcrowded slums. They had to live in slums because पैसे तो नहीं थे, right? अब पैसे नहीं होंगे तो कैसे मकान खरीदेंगे, right? They have to live in the rural, they have to live in the slums only, and rural areas में तो unemployment बहुत ज़्यादा थी, correct? Now, fourth point is small producers in towns face stiff competition from cheap machine-made goods from industrialized England. So what happened in the towns? See, the employment is less, so there will be more competition, right? And that's why from cheap machine-made goods they had to send to the England. So this was very difficult during that time. Fifth, aristocracy still enjoyed power. Peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues. So feudal dues के under peasants were struggling, and aristocrats तो वाह वाह कर ही रहे थे, right? A rise of food prices. Food prices की cost बहुत बढ़ गई. Year of bad harvest led to widespread pauperism in town and country. So what is it trying to say? That people were scared, somehow scared, and they got pauperized. This is important to understand because bad harvest हुई थी, farmers के crops means the harvest wasn't very good. Now the year 1848 was one such year. What happened in this year? Now food shortages and unemployment brought the population of Paris out on the roads. So because there was food shortages, खाने की कमी थी, and unemployment थी, बेरोजगारी, what you call in Hindi, brought the population of Paris out of the roads. Louis Philippe was forced to flee. Louis Philippe was the king. He thought कि अब तो लोग मुझे मार देंगे, अब तो लोग मेरे अगेंस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा चले जाएंगे because of this, तो मुझे तो भाग जाना चाहिए. So Louis Philippe fled. He abdicated, you can say. National Assembly proclaimed France as a republic. It also granted suffrage to all adult males above 21 and guaranteed the right to work by organizing national workshops. So what happened over here, that France was proclaimed a republic because the monarch had fled. Okay, so France became a republic, and it also granted suffrage, meaning voting rights, to all males above 21. Still, women were not allowed to vote. Are you able to understand? And guaranteed the right to vote by organizing national workshops. So उन्होंने national workshops organize की and सबको काम दे दिया. Now, moving on to the revolt by the Silesian weavers of 1845, very important. What happened with those weavers? उनके साथ हुआ क्या that they started revolting? What was the issue? Let's try to understand. See, it was between a cotton contractor and a cotton weaver. So there was a cotton contractor and a weaver. What was the year and place? Just a second. 1 minute. What happened? Yeah, fine. See, year was 1845 Silesia. Now, contractors supplied them raw material and gave them orders for finished textiles, but drastically reduced their payments. So, what he did, first of all, the contractor gave them the raw material. ये लो तुम लोग बना लो, okay, तुम लोग weave करो, and gave them orders for finished textiles. So he said कि अब तुम लोग वो textiles पे मुझे दे देना, right? But drastically reduced their payments. Then he said कि अब तुम्हें पैसे तो ज़्यादा नहीं मिलेंगे, लो ही मिलेंगे. Okay, he said this. Crowd of weavers marched to the mansion of their contractor demanding higher wages. So what these people said, the cotton weavers, कि हमें तो ज़्यादा पैसे चाहिए ही चाहिए. We want more wages. हमारे साथ इतनी नाइंसाफी आपके करने की हिम्मत कैसे हो सकती है? We wouldn't allow this at all. At any cost, हमें तो पैसे चाहिए ही चाहिए. They started revolting in this manner. They were treated with scorn and threats. तो उनको धमकी देने, like जो ये थे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स थे, वो उनको धमकी देने लग गए कि ज़्यादा वो होशियारी करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है तुम्हें. Okay, they started saying this. Following this, a group of them forced their way into the house, smashed its elegant window panes, furniture, porcelain. तो क्या हुआ? गुस्से में what they did, उन्होंने घर में विंडो पेन्स तोड़ दिए, फर्नीचर खराब कर दिया और पोर्सलेन भी खराब कर दिया. So this was their anger, okay, their rage. The contractor fled with his family to a neighboring village, but the village refused to shelter such a person. तो कंट्रैक्टर भाग गया कि भैया ये लोग तो बहुत ही एजिटेटेड लोग हैं, हमारी मृत्यु ना हो जाए, right? So that's why what they thought, that we are going to flee away, we are going to abdicate, we are going to run away to a neighboring village. But neighboring village को भी पता था कि ये लोग तो सटके हुए हैं, और you can say ये लोग तो not, I would use that these people are like very greedy. Okay, they wanted more and more money, right? Because if they would purchase in low wages and sell in high wages, they would gain a lot of profit. He returned 24 hours later with army, while 11 weavers were shot. तो वो अपनी army लेकर आया and 11 weavers were shot with that. So 11 weavers died, and so that's it for today's session. We will continue with this age of revolutions, the revolution of liberals, in the next session. And this is a homework question. What was Das Volk? The definition you have to let me know in the comment section. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for attending today's session. Bye bye.